The village of Udenta was once a place of unity and joy, where families lived together under one roof, sharing meals and stories. But over time, anger and bitterness crept into every home. Men returned from their farms with frustration burning in their chests, and they unleashed this fury upon their wives. The women, powerless against physical strength, fought back in secret ways, mixing bitter herbs and poisonous roots into their husbands' meals. The violence escalated on both sides. Children watched in terror as their parents destroyed each other. The once thriving village had become a place of fear, pain, and endless conflict. Every morning brought new complaints to the king, and every night brought new ones. The king of Udenta grew old before his time. Every day brought another case, women with broken bones, men riding in pain from poisoned food, children torn between warring parents. His hair turned white from the burden of maintaining peace in a village that had forgotten how to love. One morning, after a particularly violent night, he made a decision that would echo through generations. The village would split completely. Men would live on the eastern side, women on the western side. Each would govern themselves. The penalty for crossing the boundary would be death. The law was absolute and immediate. The separation began at sunrise. Mothers clutched their sons, knowing they would be taken to the men's village. Fathers held their daughters one last time before they were led away. The wailing of separated families filled the air like a funeral song. Brothers and sisters who had played together yesterday were now strangers, forbidden from seeing each other. Husbands and wives who had shared beds for decades stood on opposite sides of the newly marked path, staring across at what they had lost. The village that had been one became two. Possessions were divided, homes abandoned, and lives forever altered. Only one exception remained: once every full moon, there would be a mating day. The men of Udenta quickly discovered that independence came with unexpected hardships. Most had never cooked a meal in their lives. They burned yams, ruined soups, and went hungry rather than admit their incompetence. Their clothes fell apart with no one to mend them. Holes appeared in their wrappers, and they tied crude knots to hold fabric together. But the worst challenge was the babies. Every few weeks, another infant boy arrived from the women's village. The men took turns caring for them, but they had no idea what to do. Babies cried through endless nights. Some grew thin and weak. A few died, and the men dug small graves while telling themselves it wasn't their fault. The women's village faced different but equally difficult challenges. Mothers wept for their sons, wondering if the babies were eating or sleeping well. They lay awake imagining their boys cold and crying with no proper comfort. Building houses proved harder than expected. Their roofs leaked terribly when rain came, soaking sleeping mats. Hunting was frustrating, the animals were fast, and the women weren't used to tracking prey for hours. Meat became scarce. They ate more vegetables and grains, but their bodies craved what they couldn't catch. Women who had married good men felt they lost differently. They missed warmth, conversation, laughter, and feeling desired. As the dry season stretched on, several women gathered to discuss their situation. Their stomachs weren't as full as before, their bodies ached from unfamiliar labor. One woman suggested they should apologize to the men and end the madness. Others murmured agreement, they were tired of struggling. But Mama Ebe, the woman who spoke for all of them, stood and silenced the group. She was older and her voice carried weight. She declared they must not fold. This was their only chance to show the men their worth. If they returned now, nothing would change. Their daughters were watching. In the men's village, similar conversations unfolded. Some men wanted to cross the path and reunite their families. But the elders refused. Going to the women now would make them appear weak. Both sides waited. Both sides suffered. Both sides pretended they were fine. The dry season stretched endlessly. The path between villages seemed to grow wider each day. Children on both sides asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Young boys wondered why they couldn't see their mothers. Young girls asked when their fathers would return. Everyone wondered the same thing, but nobody dared ask, who would break first? The men of Udenta finally reached their limit. They marched to the king's palace in the middle of the day, eyes red from sleepless nights. They gathered before him and admitted they couldn't continue living this way. Life without their women was incomplete. The women had brought order to their homes and color to their days. The king listened quietly. When they finished, he told them he wouldn't simply revoke the law. They had to go to the women's village themselves and ask their wives to return. If the women agreed, the law would end. If they refused, the separation would continue. Some men protested. Begging would mean losing respect. The men marched to the women's village and stood before them with humility they had never shown before. They admitted the truth: they couldn't live without the women. They had been wrong to treat them as worthless. They understood now how much the women had done to keep families and village alive. They asked the women to come back. The women looked at each other. They had waited for this moment. It hadn't been easy, but they had survived. They had also missed their children and the homes they once knew. Some had missed the men who treated them well. The separation had proven what needed proving: women were not lazy or useless. They were essential. The women agreed to return. News reached the king, and he revoked the law that same day. Families reunited. Mothers held their sons again, checking them for signs of neglect, feeding them properly. Fathers embraced their daughters, realizing how much they had missed. The village of Udenta became whole once more. Life wasn't perfect after that. Couples still argued and disagreed. But the men never again called their women worthless. They had learned to respect what women contributed. The women had proven their strength and independence. The children who grew up after the separation learned a different lesson than their parents: that partnership required mutual respect, and that neither gender could truly thrive without the other. Thank you for experiencing this powerful tale of the village of Udenta with us. This ancient story reminds us that true strength lies not in domination, but in mutual respect and partnership. If this story touched your heart and made you think differently about partnership and respect, we'd love to hear from you. Like this video if you enjoyed the story and want to see more meaningful African folktales and wisdom. Speech balloon, comment below and tell us what lesson resonated most with you. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming stories about African wisdom, culture, and timeless lessons that remain relevant today. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message about respect, partnership, and the value of both masculine and feminine contributions to society. See you in the next story.